Alright, so we've got another awesome image sent in to us for us to edit from this young photographer from Switzerland. So go give him a follow. All of his details will be in the description. Go check him out. So as we come down and look at his feed, what I really like is the warm tones. So a lot of people would go for a cool vibe, a lot of blues in these sorts of environments, but I really like the warm vibes. And as you can see, there's also not a lot of whites, not a lot of contrast, and this is the image that we are going to be working with today. So also go give them a follow on YouTube, some really awesome drone stuff. So let's get into Lightroom and see what we can do. This is our Instagram final image and our unedited image, and what I've already done is cropped it. But to show you guys the crop, I'm just going to reset. So this is what it looks like uncropped and now cropped again. So what he might be thinking when he cropped this image is using the rule of thirds. So as you can see, he's lined up the horizon with the top third, and he's also put one of the main subjects is this building, so he's put that on the other cross section down in the lower third. So paying attention to rule of thirds there. So first thing I'm going to do for this image is actually enable profile corrections. I'm going to add quite a bit of warmth about there, and I'm going to lower the contrast. Bring up those highlights. But bring down these whites. We don't overexpose at all. Bring up the shadows a tad. Bring these blacks a long way down. I'm going to bring the vibrance down. A bit of saturation. So onto tone curve, a bit of a fade. So that's my tone curve done, and as you can see in the previous image, so our before, there's a lot of clouds, there's a lot of blues, and we just have a plain white sky up here. So by bringing the whites down here, that's how we get this plain white sky that's also not overexposed, so you can still see the edges, and by bringing up the whites as well, you get rid of those last bits. So that's how we match up our sky. And the next thing I'm going to do is actually going to be a filter, because I want to get the exposure right before we go on to colors. So a filter. So I'm going to bring up exposure. Maybe a few whites. And that is it for that. So now I'm kind of happy with the exposure. So now I'm going to do my colors, because if it wasn't exposed right, then it's going to really mess up our colors. So you can see what this is doing. Just trying to match it up with the other image. I can tell those rocks are very light, so we'll bring them a bit towards the yellows. So our greens are actually pretty warm here. They're kind of moody, but they're still quite warm. So yellows affect greens a lot, so I am warming up those yellows and really warming up those greens. So also on the greens, you want to bring down the saturation. And of the yellows. So we're getting closer. Bring down these oranges, as we don't want too much orange in those rocks. Coming back up here, I might just shift these blues to more of an aqua, even though there's not that many in this image. Saturation. Got some blues in the mist in the background. So luminance, deepening our colors and brightening them. So I'm going to really bring up those yellows. I really like to do that, it really makes things pop. Take those oranges down maybe. These greens, I'm going to really deepen them. So that's our HSL sliders done. So split toning, our image is looking too warm. Like you can see there's quite a bit of blues in the shadows here. So very warm, very blue, slightly cooler. So what I'm going to do is put a lot of blue into the shadows. And it will also affect pretty much the whole image, not just the shadows. So I'm going to put quite a bit in. And I'm also going to do the same with the highlights. So I think our sky is looking a little warm. Slightly blue cast in the sky. And the sky is definitely a highlight, so we need to put some in there. Alright, coming down, going to do a bit of sharpening. The pros would do their sharpening in Photoshop, but we can just do it here in Lightroom. Masking, almost always bring masking up. Hold Alt, you can see what you're sharpening. Right, so looking pretty good. So obviously it's a lot darker down this side of the image compared to ours, so we need to bring in another radial filter coming from the other direction. About there. So exposure coming down. I'm going to really bring down the highlights. I'm trying to get these rocks the same brightness. So bringing them right down. Shadows down a tad. There's still a bit of detail down the back here, so I don't want to take it down too much. Drop these whites. And some saturation. Get rid of some of those warm tones. And done. So looking pretty good before, after. And there's just one more thing to do now. Any differences, I can't really see any more differences now, and if there are, I think they'll be done with a brush. So grab a brush and you just want to add extra contrast to emphasize certain areas. So the main attraction to this image is this big towering peak here. So as you can see, it's a bit darker on this side of the rock than it is in our image. So I'm going to come in, drop the blacks, and up the contrast a little. And to make your image more dramatic and pop, you just want to darken areas that you want darker and more contrasty. And done. Now our peak is nice and dark like this one, maybe a bit too much, but oh well. I can just pull back on the blacks here. Pull back on the blacks to where I'm happy. Maybe about there. So before and after. So I am finished with that. And if you wanted to save it as a preset, you wouldn't want white balance, so you'd have to remember to add warmth, and don't want filters. Create. So that is it for that. Before, after, make sure you go give him a follow. His links will be in the description. I've also put in the settings for each shot, for the camera settings that this very photo was taken with. So, and the camera and the lens. So that will be in the description to help you maybe learn a bit more about what millimeter these photos are taken at. And yeah, give me a follow on Instagram, leave a like, leave a comment on what you want to see, and I will catch you guys in the next one.